The March 10th Lakeville Area Schools School Board Work Session. We're meeting early tonight, as all of us in this room know, but there's township elections tonight. So we moved our meeting up to 4 o'clock. We do need to end by 6 at the absolute latest to comply with state law. I believe it's state law. Yes, thank you. And I learned a fun fact yesterday on NPR. I was telling Matt that all counties in Minnesota have townships except Hennepin. So it's a big deal tonight for around the state. I didn't realize that, so including our county, Dakota. So with that, we'll go around for roll call. I'm Amber Cameron, school board member.
Brenda Albrecht, Admin Services.
Paul Carbone, School Board Member.
Carly Anderson, School Board.
Aaron Casper, National Insurance Services.
Tracy Brovold, Executive Director of Teaching and Learning.
Matt Swanson, School Board Member.
Emily McDonald, Assistant Superintendent.
Brian Thompson, School Board.
Lucas Yoho, Operations.
Michelle Humphrey, Executive Director of Student Services.
Kim Baker, School Board.
Bill Humgen, Executive Director of Business Services.
Michael Bauman, Superintendent.
Great, thanks everyone. We have 3 things on our agenda tonight. Medical and dental renewal, the ELA core resource recommendation for grades 9 through 12, and the quarterly data review. In an effort to try to get through all of these, we're going to shoot for allocating around 30 minutes per topic, and we'll see how we do. That way we can hopefully end by 6 o'clock. Well, we have to end by 6 o'clock. So with that, I would like to thank Aaron Casper for joining us today. I also learned Aaron is not in your role while you're here, but you're chair of the Eden Prairie School Board, which I think gives context to everything that we do here, so I appreciate that. Aaron is a consultant with the National Insurance Services and is here to talk about the medical and dental renewal for our district.
Great,
so, thanks.
thank you, Chair Cameron, and members of the board, as well as the administrative team. So I'll go ahead and kick us off. I think in your respective packets, you've got kind of just some talking points here. It probably will give you share some information and kind of our process and our analysis and our recommendations as you'll be considering some action at a future meeting, business meeting, but really just we'll open it up for some questions too. And I just want to say, before I get into the information, I really appreciate you having me out. I know this is, I think, year 4 or 5 that I've been out, either in an actual business meeting to talk through some information or in a board work session. So do appreciate that. It just gives all of us an opportunity to kind of get our hands around the topic. I mean, we recognize that it's your second largest budget bucket here at the district, so it's an important one. And I'm sure all of us have been hearing what's going on out in the marketplace. So with that, really the context for our medical insurance here for the next meeting and here today is really our required statutory bid requirement to go out and bid out our administrative services, our stop-loss insurance, as well as our pharmaceutical pharmacy benefit manager. It's a PEEP statute. It's designed to go ahead and create fully insured plans as well as pooled plans that are not PEEP, and then also self-insured plans. So we've got a little uniqueness that we are self-insured, so we're really just bidding out those components. So we have to do that every 2 years unless there is agreement by the largest bargaining unit to waive that statute or that requirement. So we did go out for that process in 2026, and we have structured our bid responses to have an initial response as well as a best and final response. And the reason we do that is that we've found probably 80% of the time those best and final response, there typically is a revision or 2 by multiple carriers, which is ultimately better for the members as well as the district from a plan sponsor perspective. So when we went out for bid this year, we received 7 responses, including our incumbent provider, which is Blue Cross Blue Shield, Health Partners, Health EZ, Medica, PEEP, United Healthcare, and Crumdale Specialty, which brought Express Scripts to the table, and I'll talk about that here momentarily. And essentially what Crumdale Specialty does is they are a firm that manages the pharmacy benefit manager. That is something that National Insurance Services wouldn't do. They have a team of pharmacists that basically evaluate their programming, their script offering in terms of their formulary. So they essentially manage the PBM, or the pharmacy benefit manager. We did have 5 best and final responses on the secondary bid, and of those respondents, our most competitive responses were Blue Cross Blue Shield, our incumbent Health EZ, which is a third-party administrator, and then specifically on the pharmacy benefit component, it was Crumdale and Express Scripts. When we did our analysis and we were taking a look at certainly cost, bottom line cost, but also assessment of risk within the plan, and presented that to district administration as well as the representative insurance committee, it was our recommendation that we remain with Blue Cross Blue Shield in the administrative component of the plan as well as the stop loss, but carve out the pharmacy benefit manager with Express Scripts. We feel that we're going to be able to get a bigger rebate from them, as well as maximize our additional cost savings in that type of environment. We have done that probably a handful of times with some other districts throughout the state, and it's been successful in that. And I would say their process and transition is extremely thorough, and we're trying to minimize the impact to our members as much as we possibly can. What I can share with you tonight, and I got this information earlier this morning, is that of all of our pharmacies that we're currently utilizing, we're going to have a 98.5% coverage. So essentially 499 pharmacies, and 8 we are not going to be covering. So there will be some options for those folks. And then from a total script perspective, we're capturing 99% or 99.8% of our retail claim scripts. So there is a formulary change, which is the pharmaceutical listing. There's always changes to that, even actively while we're remaining with one provider. In any type of transition, there's always a change. That's a little bit of heartburn for folks. It's going to be minimum at best. So we'll be proactive in communicating that, assuming the board approves that recommendation. The medical market that we've seen is experiencing still significant increases and adjustments in the fully insured market in the pooled environment. Medical trend has gone up. Right now, the carriers that we're talking to, we're pegging medical trend in the low double digits, so around that 11-12% range. And that's even here in the 7-county metropolitan area. You get outstate in greater Minnesota, and where they don't have as much access, and you have things like declining enrollment, and it's actually even higher than that. So that's just kind of the state kind of where we're at. Our specialty drug classes, as well as GLP-1s and those types of, for diabetic treatment as well as weight loss, have seen an incredible growth in the marketplace overall, and that is where we're experiencing some of our increased spend here at Lakeville as well. So when we take a look at our plan performance, which is again driving our claims experience, over the last 12 months, we've seen higher utilization over and beyond the 12 previous months. And remember, we take 24 months of total data, we bring that together, we more heavily weight the most recent 12-month period, and then we run it through a formula to come up with kind of where our revenue needs to be and where we are today, and that's essentially our difference.
Can I
Yeah.
go back
Go
to
ahead.
that? So when you say the last 12 months, are we talking about February 28th through last February 28th, or are we talking about school year starting July 1st until end of June?
Yeah, so that's a great question. I'm pulling up, I'm going on memory here. We're not going February to February because this is in a lag position. So more than likely, we're pulling in December data. So almost a calendar year.
December.
Calendar year, yeah. And just to put in context, we're always looking at 24 months. When we get a new month's worth of claims data, the oldest month falls off. So it's a rolling 24 month. Okay. So we're always moving forward.
Yeah.
The only thing that would really impact our renewal is the further away we are actually from our renewal, which is 7/1 or July 1st, is the more trend we have to build into that model to account for the months that we haven't yet incurred.
Yeah.
So in a perfect world, we would renew June 30th, But we can't do that because that's not how the world works.
Yep.
So we always have lag in our position, so we have to model that on a go-forward basis. So we do the same thing as an underwriter would do.
So that $3 million delta variance over the past 12 months, is that including, I'm assuming that includes the outlier that we had last year, but we don't really know. I mean, yeah, help me through that, because we're spending $3 million more than the last 12 months is what I read. Is that right?
Yeah,
Is that how I'm
absolutely.
reading
So,
this?
yeah, so the most recent 12 months, 29.7 million compared to 26.8 million.
Yeah, compared to the previous 12 months
Correct.
behind that. So the 29 million is the outlier month, or a year,
A year.
so was what I'm trying to get to. But do we know, since, September, how are we compared to, not the previous 12 months, but the previous 12 months? Because I'm trying to gauge if, are we in a, is our outlier year last year going to be the standard? You know what I mean? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I would say it's going to be the standard.
Okay.
And the reason being is so, right now, if medical trend's at 12%, you take our essentially $30 million group, you can put 12% on top of that group.
Yeah.
That's what we're looking at. So unfortunately, I wish I could tell you something different, Mr. Thompson, but I think it's going to be the new
This
norm.
could be the new norm. So can I ask, the last 12 months, is it because claims just went higher because the utilization was higher, or because the cost was higher that we recognized towards the tail end of that month? Meaning that the current cycle that we're in, if the utilization stays the same, and then the cost is actually going to be increased again, it's going to be higher than what we actually had last year. But if the utilization actually drops because compared to last year, then the cost actually should be lower. I'm just trying to, I'm not saying your $35 million estimate is wrong, but I'm like, do we have a chance that it might be lower than 35? That's all.
We'd like to see that.
Right?
Yes.
Of course, yeah. Yeah, I'm just like, all right, does that make sense?
Yeah, totally,
Yeah.
yeah. Are more people using, or is the services more expensive?
Yes.
Or both?
And
It's
the
probably
answer
both.
to that is
From
both.
last year.
Yeah.
And the answer to that is both.
Yeah.
Yeah, so what we've seen is higher frequency and higher costs within our high claimants. Now, we've got stop-loss protection at $200,000 cap level, right, to help us on those specific
But
instances.
that's per claim, not per.
Per member, right?
Yeah.
That's per member,
Correct.
that's not per claim.
It's per member,
Okay.
right? So what happens is, and I've got some data just actually right here. So if you actually come down on page 3, those that have it, our total member claims under $50,000, okay?
Yeah.
Threshold, 15.7 million, or just under 3,600 members, so that's a belly button, 3,585. While total member claims over 50,000 represents 14.7 million, or 110 members. Right. Last year, if you recall, it was actually a little bit worse percentage-wise, but we had 80 members, now we've got 110.
Yeah, it's not unusual for a smaller number of the population to be the higher volume of claims. I mean, that happens a lot.
Correct, it's the 80-20 rule.
It is the 80-20 rule, right. But my question is this, you've got almost an even split, 16 million, 15 million roughly. 110 members versus almost 3,600 members. In that 110 member population, are we looking at, is Blue Cross looking at the top 5 or 10 procedures that are driving those claims and driving that utilization? And are they looking at anything to wrap their arms around those procedures and see if there's some way they can lower cost? Whether that has to do with dealing.
I don't think it's their job.
No, it is their job. No. It is an insurance company's job to work with providers and contract with providers to keep procedural costs low. And it is their job to look at benefits and managed care programs within plans and to make recommendations to say this would, A would lower B by C. So the insurance company, particularly Blue Cross, would have some responsibility here to hopefully come up with maybe some suggestions. So therein lies my question.
Yeah. So they do, providers do have cost containment, cost management
Exactly.
programs
Right.
internally. They do have those. However, we're not talking about the, the $25,000 claims, right? We're talking about the $250 and up claims, $500,000 claims.
Right.
Just inherently, because of what that claim represents, it's difficult to manage because there's generally a very high-cost specialty drug associated with that particular claim and or some surgical procedures that could be pretty expensive. So are they managing that? Yes, they are, but it's still a giant number on a per member basis, right? So I think we have more opportunity to manage the 80% versus the 20%. Because the 20% is kind of the 20%. It's the cancers, it's the conditions, it's the ortho, or not the ortho, but the orthopedic. So it's those things that are just happening, and they kind of have a cost derived to them.
Yeah, so reverse my question.
Yeah.
Then what are they doing with the 3,600 members?
Healthy as
Yeah,
you.
Same question,
We got a lot of
but,
good things.
is there something that they can do to create impact? Since it's self-insured, and every time something happens, Bill writes a check for whatever that amount is.
Right.
What is Blue Cross doing? And I'm not saying that in a derogatory sense. I'm asking the question.
Yeah. So there's inherently management programs within various providers, and I will say this: some do a better job than others. As a self-insured plan, it's really up to us to try to make sure.
That's our job.
Yeah, to
That's
make
what
sure.
I'm saying.
And leverage out those programs. What I can tell you, we're currently in a carved-in model, which basically means Blue Cross Blue Shield does our administration, they do our stop loss, and they do the PBM. And all that is essentially behind the curtain. Now, we do have some transparency in that, and I'm not saying anything bad about Blue Cross, okay, because they in a carved-in model, that's how they operate. It's really up to us to challenge them to manage their plans, and I would say one of the main reasons why we're recommending a carve-out option for our members in our plan is because we've given them the opportunity to manage the pharmaceutical side, and we haven't really seen that come to fruition. So now we have to take that into our own hands and force that. And really what that's going to mean is it's going to be going to mean much more transparency for us as a plan sponsor, and certainly we can roll that up to the board too in some reports. Transparency, and then guarantees on performance of exactly what you're talking about.
Exactly.
In terms of the management.
There
So the trade-off for that, the trade-off for the savings is going to be, and it's real, and we've talked about it in the insurance committee, is that some of our members, not all, but some of our members are going to experience some friction within the system, right, in terms of how they access and how they've traditionally accessed pharmaceuticals or been approved for those things, or they may have to do certain things to be able to receive a certain pharmaceutical, right, within either a diabetes diagnosis or a weight loss program. It's not that they're there to decline it, it's there to manage it.
Do we have at the district someone who's responsible for managing this, the utilization, not to encourage them that they shouldn't go to healthcare, because if they got to go, they got to go. But
Right.
like just to understand, like
Internal
internal.
administrator to
Yeah.
the
Do we
district?
have anything
No,
that?
sir.
Yeah, to manage the $30 million claims
Well,
scenario.
I would say,
Because if it's on us, and if we don't have anybody, then we're not doing our part.
so it's a combination of things. So I would say, do we have a dedicated person that just does this? No, other than the fact that we do rely on, and again, some programs are better than others underneath the carrier umbrella. We have deployed strategies, so that's where you kind of rely on us to say, as an organization, a consulting firm, to say, hey, we need to deploy this strategy, we need to deploy these levers to go ahead and try to mitigate those costs. And to a large degree, I think we've done a phenomenal job. We've really received, from my lens anyways, really good participation and engagement from our existing representative insurance committee and their members and the communication, whether it's coming out of Brenda's department and the HR folks, getting those messaging out, because we've seen that manifest itself in our increased utilization as well as participation in the various levers and programs that we've deployed.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, I'm sorry.
No,
At the end of the day, it's the utilization is a byproduct of just members that need to go see a doctor, and then also the plan design that we have. The plan design that we have gives our members the flexibility to take advantage of healthcare needs when they need to, and that's just the way the plan design is set up. And because of that, the utilization then is probably maybe higher than maybe typical.
Yeah, well, you know, so we have rich plan design here.
Yeah.
There's no doubt about that. We do have, and we have seen, and we will see for sure in this next open enrollment period, we're going to see migration within our existing population. We saw that last in open enrollment. So, you know, people are going to move when they're impacted in their pocketbook. That's what's going to happen, or something else, but mostly it's financial. And there's convenience. So the way that we have our plan structured today, you know, that's been our culture here, and it's kind of where we're at now. We do have a high deductible health plan, a $4,000 plan. We're going to see more migration over to that plan. That I would anticipate that, absolutely.
Yeah.
As premium increases impact pay, people are going to make some decisions, but what I would caution here is that even if we have a $500,000 claim or a $300,000 claim, whether I'm on a $500 deductible or I'm on a $4,000 deductible,
Still gonna get it.
we just had a $300,000 claim or $500,000. Right. So that's gonna impact us no matter what.
Right.
And ultimately, we just have to figure out how can we create an environment within our population that we can try to mitigate or reduce the chances of those
And that
higher
goes
cost
back to your
claims.
80%, saying how do we make sure that they don't become the 20? But of those that are in the 20%, how do we ensure that we've got programs, or is there a dedicated resource within our team that is ensuring that those 20% are managing so that we minimize the amount of $400,000, $500,000 cares that might turn into that?
And that's difficult, right? That's difficult because that's an undiagnosed cancer diagnosis that comes up, you
Make
know,
you stay.
in June of 2026,
Yeah.
right? And, you know, and how insurance works, of course, is that the 3,500 or 3,600 people that are using it less, or half, right? They're putting in that revenue to help the 20%. And any one of us around this table can be, and maybe we have been, we can be one of the 20% at some point in time, right? So it's a tricky discussion. And then, of course, we have statutory constrictions on what we can and cannot do in terms of changing our plans. We have statutory limitations relative to aggregate value. So we have to live within the confines of the law. So what we're doing is we're trying to manage the best we can with the tools that we have access to, right? And I think the biggest thing, and you'll see here momentarily, the biggest one for us that is going to be a big thing because you know, pharmaceutical spend represents, I think it was last year 31% of our total spend and 30% this year. We see that, and we're projecting that to grow. Our GLP-1 category in of itself, you know, almost grew to $1 million year over year. And that was not only the number of participants, the additional scripts, but also the cost associated with that. So we kind of had rising tides everywhere, right? And that's zero judgment on, I mean, that's between a member and their physician. So I'm just telling you kind of where some cost drivers are. We pegged that, we estimated that it would be about a $500,000 increase. Well, it was about $800,000 increase. So that trend line is scary.
Do you think that the 110 that we had that made up that 20% last year or the past 12 months, are we on trajectory to have 110 as well for this upcoming, or are we going to potentially go back to 89? Because once you have something, are you considered out after the procedure is done or X, Y, Z, and you're back in maintenance mode? And then my second question is that, no, I'll leave it as that. Go ahead. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. So what I would tell you, how we look at it, is that it's the new norm until we see the data tell us it's not. Yeah, and that's just, we can't afford to be wrong in terms of underpegging our revenue. We just can't do that. A, I'm not going to be sitting at this table anymore, and B, you're going to be having a huge hole to fill. So we just can't afford to do that, if that answers your question.
Matt, you have a question.
Yeah, back on the high-risk group or the higher-end claims, I know we have a $200,000 stop loss for each individual claimant. But even there, I mean, if you have 75 people at $200,000, we're at $15 million already.
Yeah.
Is it not possible to get a lower stop loss?
So-
Or is it just too expensive that makes it?
Yeah. So that's a great question. So you kind of threw me for a loop. You went the other way. So oftentimes people ask, well, we're at 200,000. Well, it makes sense. The premiums on the stop loss are going to go down if we raise the stop loss up, right? So we're leverage up the stop loss. There's a calculation we use we never want to leverage our stop loss premium to try to save some plan expenses. And the reason being is we can get burned by that. 200,000, we would not recommend going below a $200,000 stop loss because anyone that would try to underwrite us at, let's say, 150,000, they've seen our experience. They're going to know what we've done, and they're going to say, "Whoa, you're going to hit this,"
Anyways.
and they're just going to adjust their premium prices to capture that profit point. So for us, the only direction we're going to go is we're going to go up eventually, but this is when we do it. We will leverage up that individual stop loss amount when we have a return to a lesser claims activity, right? Not when we're currently in the thick of it, because that can be dangerous. And then what are we saving versus what are we gaining in that type of environment?
I mean, so is that going to be based on, the age of our employees, though? Like the average age of employees? Because isn't it somewhat unpredictable as far as what that top 20% is going to be?
It's not necessarily going to be based on the average age of our demographic. It's really going to be how have we utilized our stop loss. So out of 110, how many hit that 200,000? And remember, that was 110 was over 50,000, not all 200. So it's really, we've got a formula, a calculation, a model that basically is going to tell us when does this make sense. We actually have two models that we pump it through. So we're doing that analysis, every renewal cycle. But for now, it would be a potential bigger cash flow hit for us at a time when we really can't afford to take that cash flow risk if we were to leverage that up.
Do we want to have the cash? I mean,
So, right.
Well, I mean,
I know sorry, do you have a follow-up to that one?
Well, just
Yeah, go ahead.
along the same
Yeah.
vein, if that's, I mean, are there other strategies that districts have used to, address a high-risk group? I mean, like paying their deductible to be on the high deductible plan?
There's some out there. We're actually looking at some right now, not only for Lakeville, but also a handful of other districts that have had a higher frequency of high-cost claimants, where, and I'm just going to paint it at the 10,000-foot level, where the law says you can't provide anything less to an employee, and it has to be uniform in application, so somewhat voluntary. But there might be, and it's not known yet, there might be some strategies that we could use to identify some chronic high-cost claimants to redirect them and basically make their out-of-pocket and their care covered. That would be a less impact on the overall plan. So they are out there.
Because is it the copay plan that's kind of killing us?
Well, and so I'm not talking about the plans that we have availability, like the $20 copay and the $500 and the $4,000. What I would say to that is kind of what I mentioned earlier. If we're going to have a $300,000 claim, it doesn't matter if it's on a $20 copay plan or it's on the $4,000 plan. The amount of that is de minimis. It doesn't. The differential is small.
Sure.
So it does impact how we're used to how our members are used to accessing care.
yeah.
Right? And right, wrong, or indifferent, we're in a paternalistic environment. We have been for historically, and this is debatable. But the fact is that when we compare ourselves often to the private sector, our benefits are higher in value and our salaries are less in value. And if we assume that is a reasonable point of discussion, there's, and then of course we have, as well, everyone is well aware, we have a collectively bargained environment here, right? So it takes two parties to agree to an agreement, right? So we have that going on as well and over time. And we have to identify our priorities, right?
I mean, if we want
I'm just gonna do a time check, because we got 2 other things we need to
Yeah.
get through today. I know Carly has been waiting to ask a question, so I'm wondering, Erin, if we
Well,
could.
I was giving you a 5-minute.
Oh, you're
Oh.
giving me, okay, we're past our 5
to,
minutes.
she will say she has 5 questions she wants to ask.
I'm wondering, Erin, if we
I
could,
can move it.
we could, spend
That's up.
5 more minutes getting to what the recommendation to
Sure.
the board will be that we need to consider for
Yeah.
approval, correct, at the end of this month?
Absolutely.
Okay, all right, great,
Absolutely,
thank
Chair
you.
Cameron, yeah. Yeah, so what I would say is on the bottom of page 3 there, that is exactly that. We've run the financials, we've shared this with district administration and, the insurance committee. We're recommending an aggregate increase of 15%, effective 7/1 for our plan. All 3 of our plans are going to be impacted by that slightly differently. We're associating a premium equivalent to the value associated with that plan in comparison to the other 2 that are being offered. So really what that means is that, one plan might be at 13.8, one plan might be at 17.5, one plan might be at 15.8. There's going to be variabilities in there. A couple reasons we need to do that. We need to protect revenue, and we need to align the rates, meaning making sure that the premium equivalent price that we're charging for that plan is equal to that plan value in relationship to the other 2 that are being off. That's an insurance-y thing, but we need to do that because we will see alignment. I would say we're going to see realignment in our existing enrollment.
So the cost of the copay plan, what I'm hearing, will be higher than.
Actually, the opposite. Our highest deductible plan is actually going to get the largest increase, and our $20 copay plan, and it's only a percentage or 2, is going to be probably the lesser of the 2. And again, that's a formulaic modeling. It doesn't seem that would be the right way to do it, but it's all based on value. So,
But that would make,
It's
that
raw
would,
dollars, right?
that would move a
So a
number.
smaller percentage on a smaller, a higher percentage
Right.
on a smaller
Smaller
amount
number.
of raw dollars.
You got
is
it.
Less than a lower percentage on a high dollar amount.
Yep, you got it.
So it's still raw dollars.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct, yeah. So we are recommending that 15%. In the aggregate, that accounts to a $4.6 million increase, assuming our current plan enrollment. So we're taking people where they're at today, right, with the plans, et cetera. And we do know that we're gonna have that.
So-
I'm gonna save page 4. You can take a look at that on your own, and certainly if you've got follow-up questions, you can. I'm gonna concentrate on page 5 with the remaining time I've got. A couple things that we've talked about previously. We've got Healthiest You, which is our virtual care for our, what we're communicating to our members, and the association, the Teacher Association has done a great job, the other bargaining units have done a great job of really getting this out to the members. We can see that in our enrollments, we can see that in our utilization. This is our first stop for non-emergent care. That's what we're communicating. We were able to have 100% claims removal of just under $425,000 last year for a benefit that we are not paying for, by the way, for a program. We've negotiated that with Blue Cross, and they do have some payment there. We are going to have to chip in a little bit at our 7/1 renewal. We are taking the pharmacy away. That's our recommendation. So it's $175,000. But then also our other program there is Amplify through Solarte Health. We've seen a rather large uptick in this type of program. In this one, we're essentially paying cash prices for a lot of common procedures, conditions, those types of things. And we do have some savings there. And you can see there Q3 2025, we don't have Q4 yet. We should have that momentarily. Came in at just under $630,000. So a lot of our members are using it. The one thing I say where we've got the opportunity is our dependents. So dependent spouses, dependent children, primarily 18 to age 26. If we have a hard time getting to them because we don't really have a venue to do that. So if they can go ahead and increase their membership and participation in the program, that's higher claims redirection.
I got just one more financial question, more for maybe both of you and Bill. Who determines the 15% increase? Is that going to be enough? Because if all things were equal, and actually we're not because prices are going up and we anticipate utilization potentially go up, if they both do go up, what are you projecting the savings account balance to be after a whole year has gone by with this increase?
Yes.
Or is the increase to be just break even, or is the
It's-
increase to actually put more money into this account?
Slightly, I think we've got a couple points in there, 2 to 3 points in there to try to add. But how we determine that is we've got 2 different models that we run it through. And they do the same thing, they look at things slightly different within our plan model, and then we kind of, it's an art and a science. So right now, we're running at 99% claims to revenue, right? But then we've got to account for increasing costs, to your point, as well as administrative expenses. So we feel comfortable with the 15. And I would say, you know, as we kind of take a look out, if we continue on this track, we're going to have to stabilize again. So we're probably, again, trends at 12%.
Yeah.
We're probably looking at another double digit.
So, but if it's 12% and we're putting 15, and the utilization and the costs are all going up, like, that puts 0 in your savings account. I mean, is that
You're
how?
saying, you're estimating 1% is what you're saying.
We've got, within that 15%, we've got 200 to 300 basis points
Okay,
built in.
okay.
Yeah, and so what I would say too is
Because
that.
we should have 30% in our savings account, in that account,
It's,
right?
you know, we've intentionally ran our plan kind of on the screws over the last 5 years. And there's a variety of reasons why we've done that, notwithstanding our collectively bargain process and kind of what we have. So it's difficult, you know, so for instance, what if next year we see that return to maybe more of a norm? What happens there is then we're able to build into our Fund 20 reserve.
Yes.
We will stabilize. I mean, that's going to happen. It's just, is it going to be after this next plan year, or is it going to be after the next one?
Yeah.
Right?
Well, I guess the bottom line is, like, there's no consequences for you guys. If you lose money and you don't project correctly, and we're negative $1 million or $2 million, you don't get fired, do you?
Oh, for sure we could.
I mean, like,
yeah,
you can't.
yeah, we absolutely could.
Or I get fired.
Yeah,
but
no,
here's the
we-
deal. I mean, if we're not projecting correctly, and
Yeah.
we're in the negatives again, the school, the community is responsible for it. Our taxpayers have to pay that $2 million.
For sure.
Right.
Yeah.
Coming out of our general savings account.
Right.
And so I'm not saying 15% is the wrong number. I just want to make sure, is that enough for, based on the percentage, the 12% that you're seeing, the 110% utilization, and then pretty much the negative $500 that we have, $500,000 in the savings account for the health insurance fund, where we technically need that to be about $9 million. I mean, that's where it needs to
I
be.
think the last 2 years were 5%, right?
Yeah, correct. I think the last 3 to 4.
Right.
Yeah, we've been kind of, yeah. This is the anomaly. This is the anomaly year. I mean, you know, we've got over $2 million in GLP-1 utilization,
I
right?
get it, but
that
like,
wasn't there
You
2
keep
years
saying
ago.
the anomaly year, but I'm not hearing the data that says we're having another anomaly year.
A normal year.
A normal
Back
year.
to.
Yeah.
Back to the
Normal.
normal. And if that's the case, then we need to have the funding for that.
Yeah.
Or you just do another 15% next year, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's the problem.
Yeah.
It's gonna be on the back.
That's exactly right. So if we, to your point, you know, we could propose a 25 or a 20. And that's happening out there in the market, by the way.
Yeah.
Right.
25s are happening out there.
Yeah.
We, you know, that 5-point differential from a 15 to a 20, our models are saying we can withstand that, right? We can do that. We're comfortable with a 15. That's what our models are saying.
With no, but you're not using 15% to add to the fund balance. It's 15% for utilization and risk.
So we can always add to the fund balance, right? I mean, there's nothing that precludes us from making a
Agreed, but does your
decision.
model include adding money to the fund balance? That's the question. Or does your model just mean, based on utilization and price increase, this is what it's gonna be for you guys to break even in regards to revenue and expenses? That's what I'm trying to get to.
Yeah, we've got play of 2 to 3%.
Is that enough?
My answer to that is yes.
We would say
And I
yes.
think that's why the recommendation's coming forward, right? And then we assess and readjust next time around.
Yeah.
It's a big
I mean, this
change
is
from
like, will
last
be a
year
continued
and the year
conversation,
before.
right?
Yeah.
As insurance continues to do this. All right, I'm
Just
gonna
have
give
one
us
question.
2 more minutes, and then if people have more questions in between now and the next meeting, it can get sent to Bauman.
Yeah.
Is that okay?
Sure.
Okay.
I mean, at what point does the self-insured model not work well? I mean, when do we hit that mark?
That, I think that another way of asking it is, what's your alternative?
Yeah.
So if the alternative is that you go back into the fully insured marketplace, they're going to take a look at the existing data points that we have today. Instead of a 15%, we'd probably be looking at a 30%. And we don't have any of the upside in the fully insured marketplace. Yeah, we have upside here. If we go 15 and we perform at 10, we just added, right? If we go 15 and we perform as expected, you're absolutely right. We're assessing at a 12 to 15% next year until we stabilize. That's exactly what we're doing. We prefer not to give ourselves a 20 plus and then underperform. There is always that risk, but we're trying to hedge against, having higher claims.
That's what insurance is, right? It's all about risk.
That's right. That's right.
Are there
And I know
other-
we're short on
okay.
time,
Yeah, I
so
appreciate this.
Chair Cameron, all I would do is, you've got the data here, the Delta Dental Program. We are recommending a 3% nominal increase. That's a trend increase. We're starting to build back up into our fund a little bit, about 35 grand so far this year. So really what that means, this is peanuts. This is rounding error when we're talking about a $30 million self-insured medical plan. But really looking at a single dental rate going from $50 to $51.50 per month, and a family going from $142 to $146.25.
Okay.
That's our recommendation. And hopefully after this year we can go back to zeros.
Okay, great. So this will come to the next board meeting for consideration for approval. So between now and, sorry, help me with the date. March
24th, I think.
March 24th?
24th,
And I know you're on vacation, so
Yep.
you'll not be here.
Yep.
But if there are questions in between, send it to Bauman.
Yeah,
for-
we'll answer. Yeah, we'll get the answers
Does that
back.
work for everybody? Okay. Thanks so much, Erin.
Thank you so
for
much.
Thank you,
joining us
thank you,
tonight.
everybody, appreciate it.
Okay, great. All right. Moving on to the next topic, ELA core resource recommendation. This was on our last meeting, if you remember, and we decided to table discussion on this just because of time. And so we'll work through the discussion at tonight's meeting. And we have Director Brovold and Director, no, what's your title, Sandy? I'm sorry, I don't, Director. You're not Director. Are you Director also?
I'm confused too. I'm executive.
Both Director, I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's
Executive
okay.
Director
Yeah.
Brovold and Director Georgie.
Teaching and learning leaders.
Teaching and
Yeah.
learning leaders,
Yeah.
thank you. To walk us through the recommended curriculum. But what I've also asked, just because there's been questions sent, I know, to Bauman about our curriculum review process. So wanting Tracy and team to review with the whole board what is our approved process, go through that, and then discuss the recommended resource that you're bringing forward. I think as you discussed, I think it's important, and I know Tony's not here, I was going to mention to him, but the rest of us in April revised the policy related to curriculum. So policy 606 was revised and approved by this board. And that's, I think, where a lot of your direction is stemming from. So with that, can I turn it over to you?
Yeah,
Okay,
great.
great.
Thank you. As Chair Cameron said, we are providing an update for you on the ELA core resource adoption and around the instructional resource adoption process for grades 9 through 12. Policy 606, which governs this work, talks about the school board leveraging the expertise of professional staff. And so I have two of those professional staff here with us today. Sandy Georgie is our Director of Teaching and Learning, and Natalie Nelson is one of our Teaching and Learning Coordinators. We did ask some teachers to come and be part of the presentation, but they had conferences tonight, so that was more important for them to be there for that. The presentation could be found in board book, or it's also online if you want to follow along with that. This work with our ELA teachers has been underway for several years now, and it does reflect the leadership of our staff, alignment to Minnesota standards, and our district literacy priorities. Our goal tonight is to review the process that has been followed, share the recommended instructional resource, and outline our steps, our next steps for implementation. And as outlined in district policy, our school board's role is governance and approval, while the professional staff lead the review and the evaluation process of the resource. So if you're following along on the slides, I'm moving to slide 2. So as I stated, district policy 606, textbooks and instructional materials, is what we're following to guide us in this process. The policy does establish a very clear framework on how instructional materials are reviewed and recommended. And according to that policy, it outlines that the superintendent is responsible for establishing that process, and then professional educators lead the evaluation and recommendation of materials. In the policy, you'll also see that it emphasizes that materials must support the district's educational goals, meet the needs of students, reflect diverse perspectives, and remain within the budget. That one Bill really likes. The board's role is to remain informed throughout the process and then approve the final recommendation once the review is completed. Sandy is going to take you through the next slide, which shares the resource adoption process and how we aligned our process to policy 606.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for having us here this evening. As Tracy had mentioned, if you'd like to follow along, we are on the 3rd slide. What you'll notice is the action steps that we have within the resource adoption process. Obviously, our first step is to go through a standards-based review process. That began in 2024. We'll continue through 2027, and for sure we would revisit as needed the needs for ELA. But when you think about the predictive cycle that the state of Minnesota puts forward for us, full implementation of those standards are for this year. We're still working through that implementation process. Obviously, teachers are part of that process and is led by Natalie Nelson. She's amazing in the work that she does with our ELA folks. In addition, you'll have noticed that in your Friday notes that are provided to you by Superintendent Bauman, we did provide updates to the school board on November 21st, as well as January 16th, and then again on February 20th as it relates to where we are with our process. In addition, with our standards-based review process, if you remember when I have visited with you before, we have different phases, and one of the phases includes a really robust research of what potential field test materials we would like to bring forward to teachers. That's work that really Natalie has led with her expertise and skill, and it was decided upon based on our resource rubric as well as what is out there for best practice. We looked at ed reports, which is showing green lights on both of these that we brought forward for a field test. So both HMH and Common Lit were brought forward, and the teachers did a field test. Natalie will be speaking to that in just a moment. In addition, we had a community review. So we did have these resources available with some digital links to the community for the full month of December 1st through the 31st. We also had a Google form, which allows the community members to make any comments or any feedback that they might have. In addition, if a board member wanted to, or a board member or a community member wanted to come in and look at the actual resources, we certainly could accommodate that as well. We work closely with our communication department. Director Grace Olson and her team are amazing, and they supported us with a communication campaign such as 194 Now, 194 Connect. I think they have 194 Pride. I'm really trying to keep up with all the amazing things that Grace does. And she had those pieces put in place to inform our community on December 5th, December 11th, and December 12th. In addition, we have both Carly and Paul, our directors here on the board of our school board, who are part of our Teaching and Learning Council. And then on January 12th, we did a full presentation, not only of the 912 ELA resources, but the ones that will be coming forward with you at the middle level for EL, and then for social studies, both at the elementary and the secondary. And that took place on January 12th. Our community members were a part of that robust presentation and had opportunities as well to provide feedback as to what those resources were. And then we also also brought in some samples that we had that were print, and then they had access to those digital links. And then we come to where we are now in the spring of the year is our recommendation to the school board. I'm going to turn it over to Natalie. You'll notice that on the next slide is talking a little bit about some of our key indicators. We do have a resource rubric that our teachers co-create with us when we're looking for what are those key things that we want to see in a core resource. Obviously, it's standards alignment and all those things. But Natalie's going to hit upon what are some of the pieces that our teachers stated when they went through the field test and their place of making that recommendation based on our resource rubric. So I will turn it over to Natalie.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Thanks for having me. My name is Natalie Nelson, and I'm the secondary literacy coordinator here in Lakeville. I was very recently in a classroom at Lakeville North, and this is my first year as the literacy coordinator here. I have personal experience teaching from both Common Lit 360 and the HMH into literature resource as well. I'm in my first year here, and I lead the 6th through 12th grade ELA teams, as Sandy mentioned, through curriculum review and the standards review process. Our team is currently seeking school board approval for this as our core ELA resource in 9 through 12 for multiple reasons. Not only is this a high quality instructional resource for our Tier 1 instruction, but it also serves as a teacher planning guide for re-engagement and for reteaching students in Tier 1 instruction. This curriculum also serves as a knowledge building curriculum that incorporates complex texts in a variety of contexts so that we can support our students' learning in the real world. I have also collaborated with other districts to learn about how this curriculum is successful in their worlds and how it's utilized with secondary students in other Twin Cities schools. However, as much as I have lots of background knowledge and awareness of this, there is value in hearing from our educators that have piloted this platform, and I wanted their voices to be heard even though they couldn't be here tonight. So our teachers, as they were evaluating Common Lit 360 after using it with students, shared some comments with me through a Google form. So I took some of those comments to help share with you regarding the bullet points that are on the slide that you're looking at. So in regards to meeting grade level standards, including engaging literary and informational text, a few comments that stood out to me were Common Lit has a great collection of texts for all grade levels and opens access to a variety of texts to meet readers' needs. When combined with the assessment series, teachers get a continual reading comprehension growth check. Student thinking has been challenged, and I've seen and heard firsthand rich discussions between students with ideas being challenged and also being validated. Does this curriculum allow students to choose texts and explore diverse perspectives? It has varied representation included with text, and the unit plans provided show a variety of perspectives and viewpoints to help students see both canonical texts, which are those that are considered part of the ELA canon, and modern texts, both short and long. Does this curriculum integrate reading, writing, discussion, and meaningful tasks? Assessments are varied, aligned to lessons and content, and time manageable, and the data that's available is presented in a very teacher-friendly format down to the very individual student. This curriculum provides teacher guidance, assessments, and culturally responsive supports. Teachers shared materials are well designed on their own merits. However, they can be edited or customized to fit delivery and instructional methodologies. Assessments allow for tracking data across time. I have found their teacher keys and instructions very helpful, ! Directions for lessons and instructional materials are detailed and grounded in authentic connections to real-world experiences. Does this curriculum support student growth? I do support Common Lit for adoption in our district because of its reading skills tracking ability and its flexibility with assignments. The on-demand PD videos are extremely helpful and specific to unit lessons, topics, assessments, and Common Lit tech features. One of the areas that we are looking for as well is, does this curriculum align to evidence-based literacy instruction? And part of what's important to note with this is that our 6th through 12th grade teachers have not been through READ Act training at this point because that is considered phase 2 of the READ Act. So the information on this was pulled primarily from me, from what I look at with Common Lit. I have gone through READ Act training and looking at the different ways that it builds knowledge, topics, themes, using Scarborough's reading rope, which is essential, explicit vocabulary instruction, using verbal reasoning across many texts, and then also practicing writing in a variety of different situations. And then does it support our state standards? It does. 41 school districts in Minnesota have adopted Common Lit and for full adoption, and they have very clear alignment documents that are very easily accessible should you like to see those. This curriculum utilizes differentiated, enriched re-engagement strategies. The teachers commented that it was good on scaffolding and building unit knowledge. Units are scaffolded with detailed plans, and they allow what's called flex time to slow things down and allow for opportunities to reteach or differentiate. And then finally, is it easy to use? The materials are structured and formatted consistently across all documents. The teacher documents mimic student documents, so it's not visually cluttered, and it integrates with Google Docs, slide decks, uses supplementary videos. It's a dynamic platform that allows work to take place within the program itself, but documents can also be copied into student Google accounts or printed if necessary. So those were just some things that I thought were important to note from our teachers that have used this and done a great job of testing this out with our students.
If you're...
Brian, do you have a question about that?
I do for the data, but I can wait if there's more.
Yeah, we just have a...
Do you want to finish and then?
Yeah,
Okay.
okay, perfect. One of the other pieces that we want to share with you is what does that budget allocation look like for this core resource. Common Lit 360 is a digital platform, but it also offers and allows for print as well, so we can print those things for students. And in addition to the Common Lit 360 digital platform, we will be looking at a process within our district to be able to have a selection committee for additional whole class and choice novels. Choice novels and perspective taking is a requirement within those standards. So there will be some additional supplementary pieces to the Common Lit digital platform. It roughly is $60,000 over 3 years. And then, as I mentioned, I talked about the novel and the whole class and the choice. For a 9-12 perspective, that would be around $87,000 for next fiscal year. We would continue that until we felt we had a large enough a repository for our teachers to be able to choose from. In addition, the professional learning with that consultant fee through Common Lit 360 is about $5,300. And then, of course, when we want to work with our teachers to be able to do the alignment documents with the scope and sequence, the pacing, making sure the common assessments are aligned, et cetera, is about $50,000 for that release time for having the teachers come together and work. It's about $202,000, and as Bill said, he goes, "That's very reasonable, Sandy." He said, "You did a nice job." So, the other piece, as we maybe transition in just a moment to any questions that you might have, what we are looking for next steps is your approval. And we really want to be thinking about pacing because, as Natalie mentioned, the Department of Education has created a timeline that Phase 2 teachers, which are our secondary teachers, will participate in READ Act next year. And so we really want to make sure, as teaching and learning, we're creating a manageable workload for our teachers and that we're sequencing this work and that it is consistent and robust experiences for our students. So upon approval, right away, Natalie's going to be working with our teachers. They're excited for that, even this spring, to start doing some of that alignment. And then we will continue that work in the summer for summer curriculum writing so that we can pace that so that they can implement a new curriculum, feel like they have some of those pieces already addressed, and then being able to then focus some of their time on that READ Act training that will be coming.
Great.
Okay.
Yeah,
All
so
right,
we're
Brian.
ready for any
So I've got
questions.
3 questions, and so I'll just share them, and then we can kind of come back to any of those where it makes sense. At the last board meeting, I did pull this out of the consent agenda, not because I was not in favor of it, but I think just because the magnitude and the scope of this particular curriculum, in my mind, doesn't warrant to just be thrown in the consent agenda. While it might have been the process or is a process, personally, I didn't think it would be a good opportunity to make sure we talk through this and we are all aligned, because it's going to impact 4,000 high school students or potentially, and so forth. So it might make sense for us as a board to come back and revisit that policy. I have no concerns with how you guys identified, did the research, but I think it's the approval process that I would like us to revisit. When we make a paragraph change to a school board policy. We do 2 readings just to make sure that the community is informed of what's going on. And when we've got curriculum at this particular scope, maybe a 2-meeting process might be warranted so that the community can see. I was hoping to have a presentation like this during board meeting that would have been 10 minutes. Then I would be like, cool, fine, stamp, you're good to go. So that's what I was envisioning 2 weeks ago, but that's just from my perspective. So that's the first comment. The second question that I had was the data correlation. So while there's 41 districts that have Common Lit, have you, was there data that kind of validated, okay, here's our MCA scores before Common Lit, here's what it is afterwards, and then did you see, was there a trend in year 2 and 3 with the implementation that it continued on? And is there a correlation with Common Lit being implemented 4 years later, they were able to correlate ACT scores or SAT scores from an English perspective to see, did that improve? And then the last question that I have was, $200,000, great value. If you had $1 million in the budget, can we allocate 800 back to teaching and learning and let them decide where else that money could go if it was already earmarked for their department? So that was just a question. That's all. Those are my thoughts.
Can we get to
not
here?
too
I think number 1 is, I appreciate the comment.
Yep.
Number 2, I think is something hopefully someone can answer.
Yeah.
Number 3, I think is a exercise in how do we want to spend money if we had a magic,
If we had leftover
if we had
money.
a pot of money, right?
Yes,
And
yeah.
I think there's lots of things on the table that has been thrown out. So I think at some point we can have a discussion about what might be possible. I don't think there's going to be a lot of, given the budget conversations we had, like we're not having to cut, but we're not lush, right? So maybe focus on question 2 for right. Is that okay, Brian? For right now? Okay.
That's fair.
Question 2?
Brian's question 2.
No.
That was
About-
the one
about-
about change
Ignore that
in
one.
performance.
Yeah, how has this tool been used to evaluate performance on standardized testing in other districts or the tool as a whole?
For sure. I think we might be able to take it even one step further, Brian, and I'll let Natalie chime in as well. One of the things, particularly in our process, our Lakeville South teachers, when they were doing their field testing, they did some pre and they did some post assessments to see where their students were. And during that short period of time of just field testing Common Lit, they were able to see an increase as it relates to student achievement. Just within the data that we are collecting internally, we were able to see those pieces. I don't know if you want to elaborate on that, Natalie, if I missed anything.
Yeah, I think that the important thing to note with this, the districts that I've spoken to have recently adopted it due to the curriculum alignment that's required of the state. So the long-term data is in any of those districts isn't present. Most of them are in their first year of adoption. So I think that's also just a key. Everybody starts with that conversation. We just adopted this year. We haven't seen the growth. The nice part about Common Lit is that even now we can collect a variety of ways and viewpoints to see student growth on Minnesota standards through the classroom view. So the teachers have used those data points to check and see specific standards. Are they teaching those? And they've shown me like scatter plot data or pie chart data that shows the growth. And one of the data points, I talked to them after they gave their final exam in January. They had used it and they piloted it for a couple months. And they saw that almost all of their students had shown growth through the platform. So they went from literally yellow to green in the platform on those standards. So showing proficiency immediately in some areas was very apparent to us as we looked at the data. But I think that the teachers are also seeing the benefit of that data. Then what do you do with it? Because data is also such a large story when it comes to a student. And so the takeaway, Common Lit also provides grouping suggestions for students and then targeted lessons towards what specific skills could you teach a student who is struggling with this specific state standard. And so it gives you specific lessons to follow up with that can individualize and personalize the instruction for the student following the whole class Tier 1 instruction. Then what's that re-engagement that comes after it?
You want to finish and then go to Paul?
I just wanted to add one thing to what Natalie had to say. We have to keep in mind that this is the first year that the new 2020 ELA standards are implemented. So in the spring of 2026, that's a whole new MCA assessment. based on these new standards. So even comparing it to past MCA assessments, they're really very different standards in complexity.
Could I also add in one more piece? I want to be very careful in correlating a product to student achievement, because it does revolve around the professional development that we're providing to our teachers, the extent that the teachers know and understand the standards that they're teaching to that rigor. So there's instructional components to looking at that data as well. It's not just about the resource, it's about everything else that we provide for those teachers. Continued coaching from the principals in their building. So there's a lot of variables in that student achievement increasing than just a textbook.
Yeah, and Tracy, that's a good point. This is a tool. You still need a carpenter to build the house.
Yes, correct.
So, and that's really your point, which is a good idea. But I want to come back to a comment you made. Very hopeful comment in regards to South and seeing an increase in proficiency, success, whatever the word is. Just whet our appetites. What does that mean? 5%, 10%, 1%, flat line? I mean, what did they see? They obviously saw something. What was it?
We'd have to pull up that particular presentation that they gave. They did a PLC presentation in front of their admins as part of our TDE work that we have.
Right.
From what I recall, I think Natalie's pulling it up right now. We can. Do you want to talk a little bit about the scatter plot?
So basically the view that I'm looking at, there are some student names on here, so I want to be conscious of that.
Sure.
But basically, as you look at the scatter plot, this teacher you can see like the blue and the red here. There's these dots all here, these students all increased. So there were about 6 students that actually did not show any growth in that particular period of time, and there's no students that declined. So items like this, again, it's very easy to just gravitate to this and look at, oh, this tells a whole story, but then there's also other pieces that go along with this story too, to see where are those students at, because some of them we noticed afterwards are very wonderfully proficient students, but and they just didn't show any growth, and then the largest growth was actually happening in some of our significantly struggling students.
Okay, so was that an N of like 12 people or 12 students?
So this was, I think he had 27 students total in this class.
So it's a really small sample.
And so the rest of the
Okay.
students.
They were just piloting.
Okay,
Yeah.
it's a really
Yeah.
small, okay.
Are you saying the rest of the students improved then?
21.
So 21 improved?
Mhm.
Okay, I might have missed.
And we need to remember that this was just a field test, a small sampling of students for a short period of time. But what is promising is some of that preliminary data is showing that these different strategies and these resources are making a difference for our students.
I'm assuming other states are using this, right? I mean,
Yes,
besides
Commonwealth is
Minnesota. And have they had, then they must have some sort of track record as well, if they've been doing it for 4 or 5 years.
And many of those things will come up on the Ed Reports, which is kind of a national research hub where you can do some research ahead of time, and then they have different criteria based on that. And we wouldn't have brought Common Lit forward if it wasn't already a good product.
Yeah.
I mean, I have a lot of questions, but on that line, I mean, I'm assuming there are a number of resources that districts are using, because how many districts are in the state? I mean,
About
there's-
350.
Yeah, and so a little over 10%. I mean, would you get presentations from these different companies saying like, well, look at the results we're getting?
Yeah.
I mean, $200,000 is, I mean, if it was $1 million, but it's shown to be twice as successful, I mean, I think that's something you could convince the board.
For sure.
But I guess, when you're comparing it to other options out there, you know, how did it stack up? I know we tried 2, or looked at 2, but did you look at the top 6 or the top 7?
I think-
And then are the top, sorry,
Yeah, for
I mean,
sure.
and compare like, okay, this is what the top 10 performing districts are doing in the state, or
Sure.
what they're using?
Did they,
So-
did they talk about this at the TLAC meeting? I'm just curious, like,
We did our process.
I'm just curious, like, how does
The
this?
overall process and in
Maybe
terms of-
like, it'd be helpful for the board members on those committees to like share bigger summaries about those meetings, not to put you both on the spot, but like, this is good to have it now, and when you go to the meetings to give updates on what happens at TLAC in detail, like a
Oh,
little
you mean
bit more
following the
detail.
meetings, the TLAC meetings?
Yeah, like, you know how we do board updates. I feel like having updates from your committee involvement would be, like, that would have helped, I think, bring the rest of the board along
Well,
right now.
And, yeah, and just for like the board members' sake, like I see 606, we entrust the staff to go in and find the curriculum that they're gonna recommend, but we still have to approve it, you know?
Right.
So
Yep.
just, yeah, and approving the texts, and so I know I asked for a list of the books, and was provided great information, so I feel like that should be a starting point almost for the board, like, hey, these are the texts that are gonna be used. And I do have some additional questions about that, but sorry, if you wanna go back to the selection process.
One of the pieces that we do, even before we narrow down what it might be the 2 or 3 resources that we might bring forward to the teachers, is the coordinators spend a considerable amount of time researching what is out there. And looking at all sorts of different metrics, whether it's ed reports, What Works Clearinghouse, IES studies. And so we do spend some time with that. The other piece that we do is we bring in those vendors to learn more from those vendors. We also then identify what other districts might be using that, and then we call those other districts, and then we meet with them. We get kind of a feel for where they are at. We also belong to a consortium called the Minnesota Area Curriculum Leaders. We lean on that heavily. We send out surveys. In fact, we're doing that one right now for elementary health, because that's going to be coming down. It just got sent to our curriculum leaders across the state to ask, what are you considering for the new health standards? What are you using now? What might you be considering? Why are you considering those pieces? So we really look at multiple sources before we narrow it down. Once we take all of those pieces, look at our resource rubric, juxtaposition it to those resources, we identify which ones rise to the top, because we can't have our teachers field test all of those. That would become, very difficult. So we try to narrow it down to 2 to 3 to be able to field test throughout the year. The other thing we want to consider is the experience for the student. If the teacher is field testing a multitude of resources, it becomes more challenging also for that teacher to keep consistency within their classroom too.
I do.
One more question, then Carly. Do you have a question?
I will just comment that I think in terms of my participation with TLAC, I don't have any ability to compare curricula, just to be honest, like in terms of what's better. I don't feel like that's my role at all, obviously, but in the meetings, what stood out to me, which I did bring to our board reports, was the thoughtfulness around the process and what I felt was very thorough vetting and really talking. I think some of my questions had to do like, which districts are we talking to? Are these our peer districts? And I feel like the process itself has been very thorough and thoughtful. So that was what I did share.
Okay, thanks, Carly.
Yeah.
Okay, Matt.
I was provided with a scope and sequence table for grades 9 through 12, which I think is very helpful, and maybe that could be shared with the board too. That shows, a number of texts for different units throughout the year. I was just wondering, because I know there's some discussion on, or a comment on page 10, where it says students choose texts. And I was wondering how, additional texts or resources, are integrated into that, and then how, we're able to maintain a consistency of what's actually being introduced to the students across the different schools, for tracking purposes.
Yeah, for sure. I appreciate that. In our current environment, we really don't have a consistent and a cohesive way as it looks at whether they're whole group novels or whether they're choice novels. So Natalie and I have been working closely, and we have developed a novel selection committee. And it's representative of our teachers across both our middle and our high school level. We also have some digital media specialists that are on there because they have some expertise as it relates to print. We have some administration that are on there as well. And then Natalie leads that process. We have a rubric that we look at as it relates to which text we might want to select. And in fact, that first meeting is going to be coming up. Natalie just sent something out with a couple of dates to be able to bring this team together. What we want to have is a repository of whole group novels so that we can develop some curriculum around those so that teachers can check them out. They know that they've been highly vetted, that they're aligned to what we would expect for complexity for that particular developmental age level, and that they're also meeting some of the other needs as it relates to the key shifts in the standards for the ELAs. And one of the biggest shifts is teaching multiple perspectives, as well as making sure that students have choice in choosing their text. So we want to be able to have a variety or a repository of texts so that students can actually choose maybe what they might want to read in addition to whole group instruction.
Those are in your hand texts, right?
Say that again?
Yes. Those are in your hand.
Yes, they're print, but yes, they're not
You know,
digital.
I'm always going to advocate
Yes,
for the hand
yes,
text.
they're in your hands, text.
Is that, and then like students would be expected to do assignments that are maybe
Yes.
similar,
Yeah.
but it's based on their text? Kind of like when we used to do book reports, right? Every student read their own book, but
Do
we
you
had
want
a
to
common
explain what that
assessment.
might look like?
Yeah, Common Lit does have some whole class alignments
Uh-huh.
that it clearly suggests, like you're seeing those in the scope and sequence document. And so those are really important to pay attention to, but we're also aware that there are some Minnesota-specific needs because our state standards are unique to our state. So for example, there are multiple state standards in 9 through 12 that call out that we need to focus on perspectives, specifically Dakota and Anishinaabe tribal perspectives. And so those are not most platforms or publishing companies or vendors have not done a great job of fulfilling that state standard requirement, which we legally have to do. So we are working within those accommodations as well, and using the support of our wonderful American Indian liaisons that we have through Amy Gishmeyer, and doing work with that to support that. So that's one of the places that we're working to try to see, do we need more whole class? But choice novels, Common Lit does give some suggestions for choice novels, but we want to make sure that they're appropriate, they're meeting our state standards, and then they're also going to be something that every teacher and every site can also use, because right now that has not been the expectation. We have a little bit of everything going on everywhere. So we're trying to align everything so that no matter which middle school you go to, which high school you go to, you have access to the same texts or the same choices in texts that students have elsewhere.
How is that integrated then, as far as you have all class novels that they're going to read, and then you'll just have okay, once we read that, then we're going to switch to a choice novel, and you have a choice out of 15 novels or something like that?
That's a great question. One of the ways in which we do this is we have, and a lot of those scope and sequence units, Common Lit addresses like big thematic units, and so we pick best practice shows that you should pick about 4 to 6 texts that have a similar theme or big idea through different perspectives, and that student engagement increases when you offer the variety of choices. So a student, as we all know, 16-year-olds don't like to be told what to do, so when you hand them a text that they feel like there's been some choice involved with, that gives them more empowerment to want to read. And I've seen this play out in my own classroom many times. It's wonderful, but it does need some direction, and there is too much, and there can be, and obviously when you give everyone the same book, that's not choice. So we want to have, I call it controlled choice, where you offer the pathways to them that you as the novel selection committee have curated, and then you offer them that pathway. But they're usually, or the best practice is to have them along the same lines, common theme, common big idea, common focus, so that they all, no one's missing out on something related to that unit of study, if that helps.
Doing a time check.
Yeah.
It's 20 after almost. Are there any last, do you have a question?
I do
Ryan?
one more.
Yep, one more question,
several
and then if there are more questions, can we get them to you, Michael, between now and the board meeting?
Yes.
Okay.
So I just have two. First question is that, so it's a digital platform, the books are online, is that how I understood it? No.
Novels that we were just speaking
Yeah.
of would be, as you said,
Yeah.
in front of the kids in paper. And then,
Station 87.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
yes, and then
Yeah.
one of the things about Common Lit 360 is that it does not come with your standard textbook. Like, we don't hand the big 1,000-page document to students because that's not part of the platform. What they do is they say, these are the different texts that we offer, And as I mentioned before, it can be printed. So it also integrates with Google Docs so that teachers have slideshows that are easily integrated with the tools that we have, like Schoology is our learning management system. So that is also a component of it. But I do think that does impact the cost somewhat in that you're not handing a large pre-selected chunk of text to students. We can differentiate and we can reteach and re-engage and choose to do things that are meeting students' needs as we go through the platform. So it is all digital, but those novels are not.
So as things become more and more digital, I want to make sure that I always think about the parental choice and parental involvement. If they may or may not like, for whatever reason, the text offerings and stuff like that. Does a platform, and maybe this is a separate conversation where maybe it's a district policy, or how do parents get involved in this, knowing that now everything is digital? Is their access easier now to be able to say, oh, these are the 7 books, or these are the 10 things, or these are the themes that's going on? And I'm not saying it needs to be integrated with Infinite Campus, but just, where do parents play a part in any of this? Or how do they get involved?
So if you're asking if a parent has an opportunity to maybe reconsider what that particular resource would be, we do have a policy 630 that walks through our reconsideration.
And that would just apply to that?
Correct, yes.
Got it. All right. And then my last question is, do we need to wait 2 weeks for them to keep going? Or is that something that can be made today? I don't know. So, because I know that this was supposed to be done 2 weeks ago, and then someone decided to pull it out of the consent agenda. And I don't know, but and while this is a working session, and I just want to be mindful that this is a working session, and we're not supposed to make decisions, but I just also want to be mindful of, can you wait another 2 more weeks? I don't know.
Yes, our next meeting is right around that time.
Okay.
So
Okay.
I think we'll be okay.
Okay.
Yeah, so we'll bring this to the next meeting.
Is the concern more the implementation of the program, like training on the program itself? Because my understanding, there's a digital platform. Is that what you're going to be training the teachers on? Like, here's the program and how we teach?
I think it's a little bit of that.
Okay.
As Natalie had mentioned, there's a really robust assessment portion of the program that really aligns to our state standards. So that's a really positive piece, particularly when we were looking at common assessments. So there will be some PD around that for sure. But I also think we really want our teachers to come together, look at that platform, look at those resources, and really start doing the alignment, creating that scope and sequence, creating that pacing guide, making sure that the units are developed at the robustness that they need to be. Are there any gaps? Which there will be, because most resources are not, there's going to be some spaces. And then that's where we're thinking about that professional development. So it's an and.
Because I guess the question for the board would be, is our job just the approval of the texts themselves, and not necessarily the how, but the what?
Correct. Yeah.
So, I guess one of my requests would be just to get a list of all the texts that we're approving for use in the program.
I don't think you have that list, right? Because you said you're bringing together.
We do have that smaller list that was already sent to you, but then the selection committee will be generating the next list, which will also come to you.
For sure. And they haven't even met yet, so we don't even know what those titles are.
So what we're approving next meeting is Common Lit 360.
Correct.
That's the only thing
Use
we're
of the
approving.
program.
Yes.
Yeah,
And the
by
list
the
of purchases
program.
that we shared with you.
Okay.
Yeah, so.
And we should probably have a broader discussion
Around the text?
around the text, because again, I don't want to read 800 pages in a science book or a chemistry book, but we should as a
Yeah, I think it's a conversation around what does the board want our role to be? I mean, I found this really helpful, this chart showing the many steps that the community, parents, students, teachers, et cetera, us went through to get to here. And this is important, this process. So I don't think we get to here and say, oh, we need to start over and start reviewing every single sentence. I don't think that's, in my opinion, I think that's a discussion the board can have. But this is the policy that we've supported, right, in terms of 606. And I appreciate the updates from TLAC and board members going to these things to stay informed and reading Friday notes so that we're following the process as well. It's not getting, what I don't want, or any of us I don't think want, is to get to a meeting like last week or 2 weeks ago and feel like we've never heard of this, we've never seen this. And I didn't even realize all of this had happened. And so this is helpful to know that like, we're not getting it at the nth hour. Our job is to stay plugged in through this process. So maybe that's the conversation. Like, how does the board want to stay connected? So we can have that conversation.
We did get the Friday notes, and Superintendent Bauman has shared a lot of the information from our teaching
Yeah, right.
learning department.
Yep.
So I feel like part of it is it's not like we've been in the dark about this.
Right, yeah.
So how does that come back to Matt's comment? I'm trying to connect the dots here. Matt, were you asking that we approve, Common Lit 360 as a framework? But
It's a tool.
As a tool, as a framework, which, fine, okay, but then you had a second question or a second comment in regards the texts that fit into this program. And
Which I think that aligns more with what our duty is under 123 B09.
Yeah.
Approving the text for instruction, but the what, the how, the framework is kind of the district and teachers.
So
Your department.
So all the text lives with, or what we're approving lives within this online module, correct? So when you talk to other districts, like I think Wayzata uses this, correct?
No, Wayzata does
Oh, I
not.
thought they were
No,
one of them.
no.
Whoever you talk to.
The biggest district I've talked to that uses this is Shakopee. And
Okay.
They have adopted it, and the whole package, this is what comes with it, the modules that Matt is referring, that Mr. Swanson.
Got it. So how is
I think
that?
that those, sorry.
Answer, Matt. I mean, I think if you look at the sequence and scope, that's great.
Yeah.
That's kind of
Yeah.
what the question was. Okay, what are we approving here? And it's like, okay, 9th grade, they're going to read these books and do these different units. And it's like, okay, that makes sense to me. Because I don't need to do.
So are you thinking
You've
you
done all
wanna,
the research.
like read everything in Common Lit 360? Is that what you're I'm trying to understand? Like that?
No, what our job is to approve the text for instruction.
But the texts that we're approving are all in the platform right now, correct?
I think what you're
Not all of
speaking to.
There-
Yes,
Except for
that's
the
all we're
choice
approving
ones.
right now.
But the
That's all you're
research,
approving.
That's
the
all we're
resources, we don't know what those texts are, right?
Yeah, we got sent the link where you could go to every page and read it.
Yeah, well, this is what they are. I mean, there's optional novels, right?
No, we're not talking about the novels.
Oh, yeah.
So our goal right now is just to assess if the recommendation to approve Common Lit 360, no novels, correct? Unless they exist in that platform.
Yes, there
So-
are novels that exist in the platform.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
believe we shared those with you
Yeah.
in an email.
And so there's a whole website that you developed where anyone in the community, including us, can go read the tool, correct?
Yes.
I mean, I went to the 9th grade and I read like a couple pages, right, and got a sense of what the tool looks like.
Yeah.
So that's what we need to figure out, is like, that's what the recommendation is for next meeting, is to approve this one curriculum resource, not the print novels.
And I think what.
Correct? Am I, do I have that
You're
right?
correct, and I think maybe what you're referencing, Director, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, is that's our core resource, and then we have maybe some core supplementary text that we want to add to that. That's not what we're coming forward to the board with today. What we're coming with is the core resource, and then when we get our selection committee to kind of build a repository of some choice novels, then we'll share what those selections look like moving forward.
And would you
But-
follow a similar process as this for those resources?
So with the core supplementary novels, in the sense that it would be somewhat similar, we would put some things in Friday notes to let you know where we are with that process, what we're considering. We wouldn't necessarily go through like a full communication campaign.
Sure.
Because they're supplementary resources,
Okay,
it's not
okay.
the core. So, and we really have a committee that's gonna be selecting that, so
Yeah.
then we would just bring it to you for approval.
Okay.
So it would kind of be an abbreviated process because it's supplementary to the core,
Okay.
if that makes sense.
Sorry, Carly and Kim. Sorry.
I just wanted to make one small point about, or question/point, with this 3-year contract. I know we're talking about the cost of it, which means in 3 years, we're gonna have to pay a fee again. And so how does this differ from when you did used to buy a big, like how many years would we have that big text?
50
What
years.
it's gonna
those
be?
You don't want to know that.
The Great Gatsby.
Pages out.
I guess I'm wondering, like,
Yeah, just the book
costs
cover.
change
I'm reading.
for good or for bad with these digital subscriptions? Like, this is probably something not just for ELA, but like with other curriculum coming down the pipeline.
And the other thing we want to think about is what is best practice. When you have an anthology, as you're talking about, those are just short excerpts. And one of the things we really want, and we'll talk a little bit more with the QDR now, the QDR, is that we want to get students in complex texts that are novels so they can build up our stamina. We are finding that in the current environment that we're in, students just don't have the stamina to read full texts and to be in that complex piece. And so when we were looking at this resource, certainly we want to have excerpts, short excerpts, and we want to have things from a variety of different genres, but we also want to make sure that they can actually be in a novel that is complex text, that really is looking at language structure, sentence structure, understanding meaning, and really grappling at unique content. And so that's where we really want to be focusing, and that's what the new standards are asking. So the shorter anthologies is probably not the best way that we want to go.
It's gotta be longer than YouTube Shorts. So.
Yeah.
something
sure.
So this may cost more money over time, but it's more evidence-based in terms of making that progress that we need to see. That's what I'm hearing.
And I think, too, that you'll find is with all resources moving forward, almost all of them have a digital platform.
Right.
It's almost impossible.
Some are 7 years, some are 3 years.
It's almost
all different.
It's almost impossible to find a resource that you aren't tied to a digital platform. And that's actually a good thing because all the assessments are in there, and it helps us do the alignment and making sure that we're monitoring progress on those standards. So that really is a positive piece.
Kim?
So can I clarify, the board is asking for like lists of what books are being used in this curriculum? Is that what the question is?
So, well, I think there's two things. I think there's the printed novels. Is that a good term to use, English teacher? Okay. That this committee will recommend will come to us as a list of novel titles.
Yes.
Correct?
And
But then
we have to approve the list?
correct. We have to approve that list.
Yes.
Right. Okay. Thank you. And then, but then within this tool, there are many 360. There's many novels and excerpts and et cetera. So we're approving the whole platform.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just think that I would caution the board into getting into approving specific books for curriculum or novels. The district has a process that if a parent or a community member has an issue with a book that's read in the classroom, there's a process that they can go through and talk through it. Coming from someone who's read pretty much every book on the banned list, we can get into this like whole debate about what's a good text and what's not a good text when there's lots of opinions on that. So there's lots of good literature that ends up on lists. So I'm just stating my opinion there.
Okay. I'm gonna move us to, okay, like 10 seconds, give a 10-second question?
Yeah. So this next topic, agenda.
Yes.
I think it's gonna be lengthy, and I'm not, 30 minutes is not gonna be enough. Can I make a motion, or not a motion? Can I propose we punt it to next week?
I would
or
like
at
us
the
to
next
start
meeting?
it, if that's okay, and if we feel like we can't finish it, then we can move to the next.
Okay.
Okay? All right. So with that, thank you for the transition, though. Okay. This is also
Thank you.
thank you for being here. Executive Director Volvo.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Natalie.
Natalie.
Correct, you're taking us through this?
I am,
Okay.
yes.
So, as a reminder, the board has asked for quarterly review of data. You know, we're frequently monitoring the budget through presentations from Bill, and so I think in this one you focused on academic metrics and some student service metrics. Oh, yeah, come on up, Nicole.
I thought it was just.
And so,
I'm sorry, no, you're up.
given where we are in the academic year, you've selected.
I'm so sorry, I don't mean to interrupt.
Okay. Oh, thank you. Okay, thanks. Thank you. We have been. I've been sorry. You've selected metrics that we've had new data from the last time we did this, correct? So that's what this presentation is about. Thank you. Okay.
That's correct. Well, we are, as Director Cameron explained, we are going to go through the metrics that we have results from and to share with you the steps and process we are taking to analyze those metrics. And again, I have district experts here with me. Sandy Brovol, oh my God, that was my mother-in-law, oh my gosh, Sandy Georgie, sorry. Oh my gosh. We are really close, we have gotten close over the last few weeks. And Nicole Adams are here, and Nicole's our Director of Integrated Continuous Improvement. Our goal with looking at these metrics is in this review is to really step back and look across several indicators to understand where we're seeing strengths, where we're seeing patterns, where our systems may need adjustment to better support student learning. The review that we're doing is really about our systems and taking a look at where our system is strong, where we need some additional support. We're using this data to understand instruction and how we're performing across schools and across different grade levels and across student groups. As we look at this data, we want to make sure that we remember that some of these measures represent a snapshot in time. It doesn't give the whole picture of a student. It does give us helpful signals, but they don't capture the full picture of learning that's happening across our district. What is most important as we look at this data is looking at the patterns over time and then using that information to guide our next steps. I also want to acknowledge, before we move forward, the incredible work that's happening across the district to look at our systems and to make some systems changes. Our teachers are spending so much time digging into our standards, creating scope and sequences, creating common assessments. They are learning about the Bridges math program at elementary. They're engaging in the READ Act. There's a lot of professional learning that's happening right now, and it really reflects our staff's commitment to continuous improvement and making sure that we are doing the right things for student learning. As we moved into this QBR2, we came together with several different groups. Teaching and learning at the district level met with student support services and the ICI, Integrated Continuous Improvement Team, to really drill down into the data. And the first data that we have looked at is our literacy data from FastBridge and our failure rates, our course failure rates. So we really had an opportunity to dig into that data. We also brought that data to our principal group, or our DLT, and our DLT includes our senior staff team, our principals, and also directors across the district to dig into that data and review it. And then Sandy and I also reviewed that data with our teaching and learning teams. And we asked the group, sometimes when you're looking at data, it's really easy to jump to solutions and try to personalize that data or to determine what we're doing right, what we're doing wrong. And we really asked those groups to, let's look at it from a systems perspective so that we could figure out where in our system we're lacking or where in our system we can celebrate. So as we continue to go through this process, we are going to continue to come back to data on a regular basis to make sure we're analyzing that data, but most of all that we get to a point where we could really dig deeper into analyzing the root causes and identifying solutions as to how we best move forward. Please note that that work takes time. We can't just look at the data and identify those solutions and how we're going to solve any of our issues right away. We need to take time to really dig in, to understand that data, and then to begin to incorporate all of the changes that we might need to move forward. So we'll be looking at 4 areas of data in this QBR2. We'll be looking at FastBridge fall to winter scores. We'll be looking at end of semester grade point average for high school and a continuous grade point average for middle school. We'll be looking at end-of-semester failure rates for high school and a continuous failure rate for middle school. And then we'll also be looking at attendance data. And we won't get through all of that today, but we'll do our best. And Nicole and Sandy, please jump in as you see fit. So we're going to take a look first at FastBridge. And we are very, very encouraged by our early literacy scores that we're seeing. Our overall proficiency as a district, we are looking at 73.8% proficiency. From fall to winter, we are looking at a decrease of about 0.5% from fall to winter across all of our levels, which is K through grade 9. In math proficiency, we hit 75% proficiency for winter, and this decreased by 1% from fall to winter across all of those levels as well. When we look at what's working across our district, as I said, we are really encouraged by our early literacy. Our kindergarten growth, first grade growth, and second grade growth is showing that some of our foundational literacy systems in K2 are working and our students are making progress there. So that is a really big thing to celebrate for us. We also are, go ahead.
Can I ask?
Yeah.
Okay, so 78, 69, 76, and I know that the board last year shot for 90, but I just want to be realistic with like.
So our goals this year, is that what you're getting at?
Well, yeah, I'm just.
So we set goals for this year.
Last year. Well,
we have goals for the 25-26 academic year.
Yes, for this school year.
And so for K1, it's 70.2%, and for 2 through 9, it's 75.4. So we're hitting our K1, but we are about 1.15% below our 2 through 9 goal.
For FastBridge?
For FastBridge.
Right. So, but I'm trying to, what I want to ask is, what's a realistic and what's a good number? Because, so I want to make sure that for those that are listening, like, we're not going to get to 90. Like,
We knew that.
So it's.
I'm wondering if they can keep going and talk about that, like maybe that can be part of what you're thinking about as you're presenting. And I think you have some observations on where there's opportunities to drive that number higher.
Yeah.
And what might be a real, what are we working towards? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
Is that
for
okay,
sure.
Brian?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and as you think about it, we do want to disaggregate our data so that we can look at where each grade level is and how we can support each one of them. As you can see here, we are seeing some stability in grades 7 through 9. I especially want to point out our 9th graders who went from 76.5% to 79.7%. It's really encouraging to see that as we've been putting some pieces in place at 9th grade, from Link Crew to BAR. We're really trying to make that transition from 8th grade to 9th grade really meaningful and purposeful in making sure that we're supporting those 9th grade students. We did see some decline in grades 3 through 6. And notably, we saw a concern in grade 4. They went from 78.1% to 69.2% across that grade. And we can see that across all of our buildings. And so we did a little bit deeper dive to find out how did those 4th grade students do in 2 years, in the last 2 years. And we see the exact same pattern, a decrease in their FastBridge scores from fall to winter. We do see that they rebound and they grow again from winter to spring. They don't get back to where they were at fall, but we do see that growth come back again. And so looking at that from a systems perspective, we're saying what's happening between fall and winter that we're not preparing, the system isn't preparing those students for that assessment that they have in the winter. Do either of you want to add to that?
I think the other piece to note is grade 4 is also our COVID year. So we do know that that is also an area that we're looking at. And I think too, we need to be thinking about pacing of our instruction, and does that make pace with what that assessment is asking?
Before you move on from the COVID conversation of that particular cohort of kids, share the why or what why that group matters and kind of what we're trying to assess there. in that the fundamentals that, okay, I'll just.
What do you think, Mike?
The one conversation I think happened nationally around that cohort of kids, you know, the decision was made to take the kids out of school, go put them online, all that stuff. And then it was as if there's not going to be any consequence to that. And there is a consequence to that. The fundamental development, and I think if you look at how we're doing it in K2, and then you see where 4 is, something got missed. And then how do you recover it? And I think that's the challenge we have. Now, yes, I'm saying maybe there's a little bit of a leap there, but I don't think it's a big leap. I can make that correlation. The question is how do we help that particular group of kids? And that's another part we're going to look at more deeply. So I just want to say that out loud. That's not the only excuse you have is that it's not been recovered. There's no excuse for that other than you didn't see it coming. You know, point the finger at me, whatever you need to do. My point is that's why that class I think is of an important concern and also one that we need to figure out as we're moving forward and really look at the disaggregation of the data on that.
Do you think also that many of us have a 4th grader on the board, and they didn't have online. They started K live. They were the first group to return back, but it was masked, I think. I can't remember. But as a result, that class is big across the country, not just Lakeville, right? It's a bubble class. So we have higher class sizes for that group. We're building the middle schools because of that group, right? Or building on. And so might that be part of it too, is there are just more of them, and we have.
That's what I mean.
Okay, yep.
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
Yes, the online part, but the fact that they came back when they came back, and there's a transition that your whole organization has to take from coming back offline to back online.
Got it.
And all of the things that were associated with that because we weren't out of the pandemic.
Right.
I mean, that's some serious stuff that happened that I think might get glossed over a little bit.
I also want to just piggyback off of that. They did come back in person, but they were masked.
They were masked.
And when you're kindergarten, you got it, you've got it. They have to be able to see what those sounds look like and how you make those sounds. And that early portion of that early literacy with that phonemic awareness, they miss some of that.
So is there a higher percentage of special education IEP plans for this 4th grade population compared to normal? I mean, I would assume maybe not. I don't know.
But isn't one of the findings here that is consistent across the last 3 years is that they're starting higher and getting lower? Something, that's
there's something
system.
They were doing very well in the fall.
They were doing well,
So
they're getting worse.
I don't know if it's COVID.
Well, this is what I'm saying,
Yeah.
is masks and COVID don't have anything to do with the fact that they're starting high, getting worse, and that has happened for 3 consecutive years, right? So what I hear you guys saying is something's going on that we need to dig into with that pattern.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. Makes sense. Okay. Keep on, please.
Okay, all right. We also disaggregated this data by students who are receiving special education services. I want us to be really careful with this data because this is every student who receives special education services, from a student who might receive speech services to
Speech-only services.
Speech-only services to other services. So we haven't disaggregated this data further at this point. But what we are seeing here is that we're seeing a slight decline if a student is being receiving special education. And so we need to dig further into that.
Are the numbers above exclude them, or do you have another set of numbers that exclude them so that we can actually see a difference?
The numbers above include them.
Include them. So the numbers above would be actually significantly higher than if you excluded this population.
Because it's probably about a quarter of our student body, correct?
Yeah.
Are receiving some form of
Special
service?
education.
Yeah.
Okay.
Are you seeing this also with English language students? A similar pattern?
We are seeing a similar pattern.
Okay, okay.
Yes, yep.
I think that would be nice to be able to differentiate
Yeah.
those that have special education, English as a second language, just so that we can, and then you get the aggregate score as well.
Yeah.
Because we can't make the aggregate score to 90 when you've got other populations that just may not have the ability to get there, so. Okay.
Well, not that, I mean, I think it's like different students have different needs. And so how do we help all students along, and those might require different interventions, different services. Yeah.
What we've been talking about in teaching and learning is making sure that we have strong Tier 1 instructional practices for all students, so that our special education students, our EL students, everybody is receiving strong core, strong Tier 1, and then what do they get extra? What do they get in addition to Tier 1 that can help support them along the way? Anything to add? No? Good. Okay. We have not, at this point, we have not taken a deep dive into our math scores. We are going to be doing that with the student services, teaching and learning, and ICI teams next week. And then on Tuesday, we'll also be following up with our principals. So we'll have more information around math in a similar way for you, and we could maybe add that to our presentation as we go into our next board meeting. How much time we got? How are we doing?
We got 10 minutes.
Oh, okay.
Do you want to like
All right.
work through the packet and then maybe we can hold questions?
Sure.
And figure out how that we want to discuss those.
Sure.
Is that
Yeah.
okay?
Yeah.
So you can get through your points.
Yeah, so we have several action steps that we're putting into place. These are action steps for literacy because we haven't taken a deep dive into math. Some of these cross over because we're doing these district-wide, and so you'll see the same thing in math. By using data to guide improvement, making sure that we are regularly looking at data and looking at it from a systems perspective, as well as at the elementary level, they do a really great job of having data digs after their FastBridge scores come out. They look at that down to the grade level, and each teacher is able to look at their individual students and how they're doing and what interventions they want to put in place to support them. Strengthening teaching and learning. We know that our secondary teachers are engaged in professional learning on the 5 days that we have professional development, and they are focused on our grade level benchmarks, so they are reviewing their standards. They are looking at following a scope and sequence. They're coming together with their cross-district colleagues to look at what their scope and sequence looks like, and they're developing common assessments as well. We know that our K-3 teachers have completed REDAC training. Grades 4-5 are completing the training this year, which has been 60 hours of training. I'm not done with my training yet. I think I have like 10 hours left. I'm getting there. And then we also have our teachers engaged in implementing Bridges math. So when we look at building our stronger systems of support, as Natalie was here, she is taking our secondary teachers through a robust standards-based review with our ELA standards. Our elementary teachers are supported in a standards-based review process, and they do a train-the-trainer model because we can't bring every elementary teacher together at the same time like we can at secondary. And so we have a train-the-trainer model where Sandy's team helps to train some of our teachers and our leaders in our buildings, and then they go back and train the teachers in their buildings. This year, we have expanded intervention for K-3. We have K-3 ADSIS reading interventionists in 9 of our elementary schools. And we have professional learning at both secondary and elementary levels with the ELA resources in the adoption process. Secondary will adopt this next school year, and elementary will be adopting the following year a new ELA resource. They'll be piloting that resource this next school year. We also are partnering with the Minnesota Department of Education. We are working to strengthen our systems of support for our ELD students. We are also, Nicole presented the Achievement and Integration Plan for you a couple weeks ago, maybe. And part of that plan is bringing in 2 new positions that are focused on strengthening Tier 1 and Tier 2 for our EL students. And then we are working closely with student services to make sure that we have strong core Tier 1 instruction. And then we have specialized supports for students who are identified to receive services for special education and EL.
Can I, on this particular one,
Yeah.
with all the, I get it, where we want to create good systems at the tier 1 level, and it sounds like a lot of this stuff does that, which is good, so that when a student comes through the process, they're getting whatever. But at the end of the day, the student still has to do the work. Like you can put the best system in place, and if they're not going to do the work, you're still going to have a poor, an unfavorable outcome. It's not that the system is bad, you know what I mean? And so, I've talked to Matt about this, where where do we start to incorporate AI or AI tutoring or whatever it may be, where it's individualized, personalized for that person or for that student, and it's really not a system thing. It's more of like, hey, the kid needs 30 more minutes of reading 3 times a week, and maybe in middle school during winter time, that's just what they do. They don't do anything else. That's just what they do until they're at the proficiency level that they need to be. So I just want to be mindful that while we're putting systems, I get that, but again, if the student isn't going to do it, and we're not creating a program personalized to the student, the system isn't going to work.
So I think, would that require, in order to implement something like that, I think we need to know a lot more about the students who are not having success, right? Or who aren't gaining as much as we'd like. So we can see here that our special education students who are receiving SPED services might be a group that needs extra support. AI tutoring might be a tool that's helpful for that, or it might be something else. So I think we need to look at who is doing things, or what students are needing supports, and then what are the best tools to accommodate those learning needs. Do you know?
Yeah, I get
so,
that. Yeah.
And I think that's
Yep.
what you're trying to
Yep.
do. We have 3 minutes. I think we're probably going to end on this section. So if there's one more question,
Weighted GPAs.
I got 4 on my phone. But I think.
Just save questions for.
Okay, save questions. We could pick either, what's the board's preference? We could pick this back up at a future meeting, or
I move to
we could
adjourn.
process the report, and if you have questions, you could send them to Bauman for Friday notes, and the whole board could receive a response. Is there a preference? So I appreciate the report and the action steps related to it, but what do y'all want to do?
Sorry. Are you going to continue this?
I'm
That's what I
asking,
want.
do you want the rest of this to go on a future meeting?
Yes. That's
Okay,
my
so
vote.
that's your vote, or do you have the information with the ability to ask questions that would go in Friday notes for further understanding of how the district is taking data to change how things are happening?
I mean, I guess it's, if we want it to process for us, or if we want to share it with the community, I guess it's 2 different questions.
Yeah,
right?
and I feel like
'Cause
this
think
is-
the information is good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
this is public, obviously, the report. Yep.
But I think there's more than just that we're doing as a district, which might come out in a future meeting if we have. I have a lot of questions I didn't ask because of time. So I'd be up for an additional meeting.
Do you think this is
Yeah.
like next work session? This
Yeah,
is
it'd
not
be a next
really
work session.
Yeah, business
Yeah.
meeting.
Okay,
Yeah.
sounds good.
Yeah.
So with 2 minutes, we'll save the second half of the report for the next work session. And maybe by then the math stuff will be ready, potentially, we can see. Yeah, with that, we can wrap it up and have a good evening, everybody.
Motion to
And by
adjourn.
6.
Motion to
Oh,
adjourn.
We don't
have
need
to
motions
for-
for, I watch so many board meetings. Eden Prairie, they don't do any